I've said before, I've made this observation before, that people who are on the left or who are liberal, generally speaking, don't really have to understand the other side, because the left leaning point of view is the establishment point of view. It's reflected in what you hear on in the mainstream news, and so it comes across as just well, this is just impartial news. This is they're saying it on CNN. CNN's not biased one way or the other. They're just the news. This is in the New York Times. The New York Times is just telling us what the news is. This is the kind of mentality that you have when you're on the left. I mean, and I think it's maybe you could say they're being intellectually dishonest, but I think for a lot of them they're just unaware, or it just doesn't come into their mind that much. And I can say this because it was a long time ago, but I was once on the left myself. I mean, it was a long, long time ago. It was basically during my teenage years and early college years. And then around age 20 or so, it started to change. And for a couple of years, I was calling myself a libertarian, and then became sort of a normie conservative for my early to mid 20s. And then as I got older, got a little bit farther to the right till I became the uh, the charming fellow whose uh, resonant voice greets you today. But when I was, even though I was basically just a kid, I remember feeling this way. I mean, I remember that, and of course, I've made the point that being liberal back then in the 80s and maybe even into the early 90s was not the same as, did not mean the same thing, did not entail the same kind of personality traits or uh, what have you as today. Um, I don't want to get too far afield. I don't want to go off the beaten track too much here, or ramble too much here. But just to complete that parenthetical thought, you were you. There wasn't really political correctness. You could be on the left. You could be somebody who votes Democrat or thinks of himself as a liberal, and still think that jokes about women not being able not knowing how to drive or whatever are funny. you know, it was a less censorious time. Let's just take one example. But anyway, while I was on the left, and the media was basically on the left, and entertainment was basically on the left, and so everything that I saw that reflected my own beliefs back at me, more or less. Um, and I didn't really, when I had to confront somebody who thought differently, it was it was like, what's this? It was like it was a frustrating thing, but it was also like greeting this exotic creature uh, from out in the wild, and I didn't really know what it was, and I didn't really know uh, what its thought process was, and so as a result, I, like many people on the left, succumb to this uh, stereotypical perspective that if you're a right leaning person, you want you're some kind of caveman troglodyte who just wants to kill homosexuals and uh, uh, thinks that all women belong in the kitchen at all times, and you know, just just uh, just this caricature that has no real basis in reality. And the result of that is when the left tries to satirize the right, it almost always um, falls flat. Not because there aren't things on the right that are worthy of being satirized, but because the left just doesn't know the right, doesn't know what the right is, because the left doesn't really have to contend with the right um, in their everyday life. Now, um, you know, today with the internet, social media, you more often see uh, clashing. The clashing happens online, and you have these completely useless um, sorts of threads where people are go and I get drawn. I've gone drawn into it sometimes myself, and it's not a very fruitful thing. But in any case, even there, you see that they just they don't understand what they're talking about, and it's not because they're stupid. And I'm not insulting. Uh, I'm not. My message here isn't to insult them or say that they are stupid, but just say that they're ignorant in the sense that they don't know. They don't know the things that they don't know the actual mindset of right leaning people. And I was reminded of this. There was somebody I used to be in touch with, who I heard from not long ago, um, about about the Charlie Kirk thing. This is somebody who lives out in Utah, and when Charlie Kirk was killed, I texted this person and sort of jokingly said, "Did you do it?" Um, and uh, and what I heard back, uh, you know, was, "Oh well, Charlie Kirk, he because this person has become a liberal, more or less, a liberal feminist. Um, what I heard was, did you know that Charlie Kirk believed that women shouldn't work, that they should just stay home." Um, you know, and I thought to myself, I really doubt that he has said anything like that. I mean, he probably has said that he believes in the traditional family and so forth, and that that he's probably in favor of he probably has positive feelings towards the traditional family where the wife stays home and has kids, if that can be managed, a family that can be managed on one income. But I really don't think this is the kind of person who would say, a woman's place is in the kitchen, and well, just all this kind of. It was another example of somebody on the left just not getting it, and I didn't engage. I didn't respond uh, to this. Um, and I don't think it was bait. I don't think that I was being baited by this person. I think that it was something that this person actually believed, and it was and then I saw a little bit later that Stephen King said that Stephen King, the author, yes, that's Stephen King, um, said or tweeted something about how Charlie Kirk believed that that homosexuals should be stoned. Uh, and then somebody responded, "No, he didn't. He never believed that. He never said anything that would suggest that he believed anything like that." And then King it just sort of, well, I mean, I guess sort of to his credit, he just abjectly, oh well, I guess I'm wrong. Sorry about that. I guess I was misinformed. Which, I mean, I guess I should give him credit for 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 at least not doubling down on his ignorance. But why would you post something like that with such confidence, unless you just think you know the type? You just, unless your understanding of what right leaning people, right, conservative people are, comes directly from the media, the very left leaning media, and their very misinformed ideas and notions of what right leaning people are like. Um, and so there, I'm inclined to think that a lot of the like the liberals and leftists, I still don't, I'm not saying there's any excuse for gleefully uh, celebrating his murder, but I think there are probably a lot of people on the left who just have no idea who Charlie Kirk really was, uh, because they just think they know the type, and the quote type that they think they know is what is what they see satirized on Saturday Night Live, or or I don't know where, and Doonesbury. That's a little dated. I'm trying to think of some more modern example. Like on Stephen Colbert, or whatever. Um, there's no real understand. It's not based on a real understanding of real people. And the reason why they don't have to understand these people is because uh, you can just go, if I mean, of course, the mainstream news is less and less prominent now, um, and alternative media is much more of a possibility. You can get your news, if you're a news getter. I'm not. I generally try to avoid the news, but if you're a news consumer, uh, you can go to alternative uh, uh, sites, alternative sources. But for a long time, the mainstream news was all that there was, and the mainstream news was always very much on the left. So, so as a result, if you were on the left, it, and this still holds because the mainstream media is still the mainstream media. I think they're worse. I think they're more dishonest now than they've been in the past. Um, I think you know there might have been a time in the past where a person could be uh, like a news reporter who is generally left leaning could still think to himself, "Well, I'm going to report. I know I have my own bias, but I need to get past my bias and just report what's actually happening." And that's all that a reporter should do. I don't really care what a news reporter's bias is, uh, uh, or what his opinions are, or how he votes, if he strives to be fair. That's the really important thing. And ask himself, am I giving both sides? There's two sides to every issue. Am I giving voice to both sides here? There's at least two sides to every issue. Am I being fair? But I don't think they ask themselves that very much anymore, because now the news is seen as advocacy for being on the right side of history and all that rhetorical nonsense that they indulge in. But my overall point here is just to say um, that the enemies of Charlie Kirk, they don't understand. They don't understand. They see this guy and they see, oh well, he's a Trump supporter, and he believes in the traditional family, and he's religious, and then that just sets off, that just like, um, when you're on the left, there are certain things, that just grind your gears, that they just push your buttons. And it's like, oh, Trump, a Trump supporter, oh, Republican, oh, Christian conservative, oh, and then they just fill in the gaps. Like, that they just presume, well, of course he believes that gays should be stoned in the public streets, uh, and that women should just stay at home and be barefoot and pregnant. And of course these are what he believes, because that's what these type of people believe. And they allow themselves to stay on that level of ignorance because uh, they just don't question it. They just don't question, um, what what's been fed to them for their whole lives. And again, if you're on the left, you can go through practically your whole life. Again, it was easier to do this before the rise of alternative media, but there was a time when you could, when the mainstream media was all that there was, the nightly news and the and the establishment, the legacy newspapers, and well, that was all that there was. That was the only place you could uh, get information on what's going on in the world. So you could just have this stuff fed to you, and of course what you're taught in school is largely indoctrination. Um, it's hardly unbiased. What you end up learning in public schools, you know, it used to not be so poisonous. They used to. Uh, I hold to my general opinion that in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't. You could be a liberal, and it wasn't. It didn't mean nearly the same thing that it means to be on the left today. Um, but I think that there's just a lot of ignorance, and it's not the same. It's not the same way with people on the right. Not because people on the right are inherently more clever or smarter than people on the left, but just because if you're somebody who's a right leaning person, you have to contend. Everything you're hearing from establishment sources is antagonistic to your point of view, and so you actually get to know what liberals are like, what their proclivities are, and that's why I think right leaning or libertarian leaning uh, people, people who are critical of liberalism, uh, why their satire of liberalism tends to be more apt, because they actually know what they're making fun of. They actually they've actually you can't avoid these people, uh, because you run into them every day. If you went to school, you ran into them. If you ever watched the news, you ran into them. Uh, and so it's harder to be in an echo chamber. Whereas if you're on the left, it's It's I guess that's the term. I was. It's I've been babbling here for 20 minutes, and at around the 20-minute mark, I hit upon the term that works: echo chamber. That's the term that I'm looking for. It's hard. You really can't be in a right wing echo chamber in the West today because you just can't avoid, you know, no matter, even if all of your family are staunchly conservative and all of your friends are staunchly conservative. Um, it's still you're not. It's a lot harder to find a staunchly. You're not going to be. When you go to school, you're going to be exposed to ideas that are different. Um, Whereas if you're on the left, you're you it's it's much easier to just live in that echo chamber because that's what the mainstream media is, and that's what mainstream thought is. Uh, Bias that is so um, ubiquitous that it's almost invisible. That it is invisible. I think that accounts for a lot of. That's maybe why we should not. We should be patient, not with the people who are getting online screaming and cackling about Charlie Kirk uh, being murdered, but maybe the people who presume that Charlie Kirk was a certain way because he was a prominent conservative. Maybe people like that, people who have wrong ideas about him, like my friend in Utah, or like Stephen King. Even if they should know better, if they even if they, you think they ought to know better, this is why they don't know better.